it's Stephen Miller who has been dispatched to try to, twist the arms of Republicans who've historically opposed this expansive power and try to push through more spying power for the Trump administration.
On the line with us, our old buddy Craig Aaron, the president and co-CEO of freepress.net. This is the real free press, the original free press, the let's stand up for our rights free press, not that right-wing rag that has been ripping off the name. I don't know if you can say that, but I certainly will, Craig Aaron.
Craig. I just want you to say it louder, Tom.
Okay.
I appreciate you naming the difference. Not a division of Paramount Skydance.
There you go.
We were here first.
Not owned by right-wing billionaires or their Nepo baby offspring.
That's right.
So, anyhow, it's been way too long since we've talked, Craig. It's great to have you back on the program. Let's talk about Brendan Carr. He is the chairman of the FCC. The FCC has considerable power over, over me. I mean, I'm on real radio stations all over the country.
Right.
And basically over much of our media. And he's at it again. Tell us the story.
Yeah, that's right. So Brendan Carr, Trump's handpicked chairman of the FCC and really censor in chief. So he has been using and abusing his power at the agency to try to pressure and warp news coverage. We talked about Nepo baby David Ellison. The cost of him being able to obtain CBS was a willingness to settle lawsuits with Trump, to warp coverage, to install right-wing bias monitors. And Brendan Carr is indeed at it again. Over the weekend, we had first Pete Hegseth and President Trump complaining very aggressively, violently even, about media coverage of the attack on Iran. And Brendan Carr, apparently stationed at Mar-a-Lago, decided to chime in, threatening the licenses of broadcasters who traffic in so-called fake news. And what he means by fake news is news that does not echo the propaganda of the Trump administration around this war. So Trump was complaining about coverage in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Carr weighed in saying, broadcasters, pay attention. If you don't essentially get in line, we know your licenses are up for renewal. This is what government censorship looks like, abusing regulatory powers to try to enforce ideological conformity. That's what Brendan Carr is doing. That's what he's been trying to doing back when he was trying to get Jimmy Kimmel off the air, in the role he's playing in trying to manipulate these mergers so they go into the hands of Trump cronies. And once again, he has stepped into it by really abusing his power, abusing the role of the FCC to say, if you're not on board with what the administration is doing, maybe we don't want you broadcasting at all.
Right. And this is, by the way, part of the strategy that Putin used during that brief period of a few years when Russia was a democracy and there were multiple free press agencies, news organizations in Russia, and he had billionaires, oligarchs aligned with him, buy them all up, and ran some of them out of business by suing them for defamation. And then Viktor Orban did the exact same thing in Hungary.
Same playbook, that's right.
And I'm assuming this has happened in other countries around the world before Trump started doing this here.
Yeah, well, certainly what they're trying. Trump is being so much more sort of bald-faced about it. He, over the weekend on his Truth Social site, he tweeted out this chart. It looks like it was made by a middle schooler, but it includes all of these attacks, taking credit for firing a bunch of journalists, of course, for defunding PBS and NPR, and for the Washington Post journalists losing their jobs, seeing that as all part of Trump's agenda. And unquestionably, you talk to people in other countries. The Philippines would be another example of a place they tried to do this. Poland, they tried to do this. Authoritarians recognize that coming after the media is a major page in the authoritarian playbook. If you can control the media, you can control the narrative, you can reduce dissenting voices and independent accountability. That is how you fuel authoritarianism. And the Trump administration is certainly trying it. Very much here, the threat is the point. They've recognized if they make noise, if they go after these outlets, that these big companies, afraid that their next merger won't be approved or afraid that their government contracts will come under scrutiny, are willing to bend warp coverage, spike stories, and just go easier on Trump than they might otherwise. That doesn't apply to every member of the media, and certainly Trump comes after the Wall Street Journal and others who still do real reporting despite their op-ed pages because they're unwilling to just get in line. But a big part of the strategy, as Elon Musk demonstrated for them when he took over Twitter and turned it into X, is if our guys control these outlets, then it's going to be that much easier for us to control the narrative and be able to essentially warp reality to meet our political ends, despite what you might see in front of your eyes. And that's running through the whole strategy of the administration, the way they deal with the press, who they favor, who they even let into the room.
Yeah, and it's rolling along. I mean, this is just it's pretty shocking. With this massive media merger, you've got this one right-wing family now going to own CBS, CNN, TikTok. Just the list goes on and on.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. I mean, it's beyond Rupert Murdoch levels of concentration. And for it to happen so fast, I mean, Paramount just took over CBS last fall, and they've gone out of their way already they've just demonstrated their willingness to warp coverage, to ask softball questions, to do these soft focus profiles of Trump administration officials. And they're salivating at the chance to get CNN as well. I mean, literally last week, Pete Hegseth in a press conference where he got angry about questions he was being asked about his own incompetence and the failures already on display in Iran, lashed out saying, he couldn't wait until David Ellison, that billionaire Nepo baby, took over CNN. So, the fix is in when it comes to the federal government. That doesn't mean the deal is done. Others can step in. State attorneys general need to be paying attention. Democratic politicians need to be speaking up here. But it is a very dangerous situation with this much media power in the hands of people who are interested in warping that coverage just to serve Trump.
We're talking with Craig Aaron, the president and co-CEO of freepress.net, the real free press, the original free press. Craig, Stephen Miller is all over this, please give us the right to spy on American citizens without a warrant stuff. Tell us about this.
Yeah, thanks for raising that issue, Tom. There's a part of the law, it's called Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This is sort of a notorious thing put in after 9/11, which has allowed the FBI and others to spy on American citizens without a warrant. It essentially creates a backdoor loophole that has been abused many times to spy on protesters, to spy even on members of Congress, essentially sweep them up while claiming you're looking for somebody from abroad and spying on Americans without a warrant. For years, groups like mine, Free Press, have been advocating to close these loopholes, end unlawful and unwarranted surveillance, and now that law is up for renewal. And it's a bipartisan effort to reform this. There are many Republicans who historically have been concerned with government overreach, as this is a law that has been abused by Democrat and Republican presidents alike. Mm-hmm. However, it's especially dangerous now. And Stephen Miller has inserted himself into this debate, pushing for full reauthorization and keeping these loopholes open. And this is, of course, especially dangerous in an administration that has classified peaceful protesters as domestic terrorists, that has detained people simply for writing an op-ed in their college newspaper or advocating for Palestinian liberation. So the idea that they would have these completely unchecked spying powers with no oversight, because Trump eliminated the civilian oversight board that was supposed to be able to oversee these activities, makes it even more dangerous. So there is a vote coming up in Congress, probably in early April, over whether this law is going to be renewed. And right now, it's Stephen Miller who has been dispatched to try to, twist the arms of Republicans who've historically opposed this expansive power and try to push through more spying power for the Trump administration. So we filed a letter last week with over 90 groups, the ACLU, many civil liberties groups, opposing this and drawing attention to the Democrats who, let's be honest, have not been consistent on this issue. Mm-hmm. They have often signed in favor of these spying powers when Obama was president, et cetera. telling them to really pay attention. Maybe they can see it now with Stephen Miller's name at the top of the masthead, just how dangerous it is to give this kind of unchecked power to Trump, to Stephen Miller, to Kash Patel's FBI. It needs to be reined in. They shouldn't be able to do anything without a judicial warrant. And that's the only way we can protect people's privacy from this incredibly invasive surveillance.
Yeah, I'm with you. And just very quickly, we're up against a break here, Craig Aaron. If our listeners want to call their senators and their members of the House at 202-224-3121, what is the one sentence summary that they should say? How should they identify this?
Yeah, they should oppose reauthorization of Section 702 without reforms. So no blank check for Stephen Miller. That could be your second sentence.
Yeah, no blank check for Stephen Miller. I love it. Oppose reauthorization of Section 702. Perfect. Craig Aaron, freepress.net, the real free press. Check it out. Craig, thanks so much.
Appreciate it, Tom. Always glad to be on.
Thank you. Always great having you here with us, Craig. Good talking to you.